Okay, hello, YouTube, the internet, and everyone. Today, going to go over some harmony techniques that I've talked about before, but a little bit more in depth as well about how we can use them. Kind of going to break it into two parts. I've seen people do this before, but I think I'll do it again. Why music theory is kind of useless is going to be the first part, and some tricks we can use, like if you don't have a good basis in music theory, and then why music theory is possibly the most important piece of gear you're going to have ever, which is your ears, So let's start with why music theory is useless, because a lot of producers I see on the internet kind of talk about this. And true, there are many things with Ableton that we can use to help us with this. So let's try and figure out what they are. Okay, one, obviously the push is an amazing piece of gear, but there's a couple of things inside Ableton that we can use. So I'm just going to grab out a track. Just want to check, I've already got a hello from a secret place. Yes, I see that. I forget we're in the internet, so fair enough to guard where you are. Can you hear everything? Can you see everything correctly? Can you hear my computer and my microphone? If yes, just put a comment there. If not, let me know. I'm going to go through how to use parallel chords and what they are. So just going to grab up my standard Rhodes, which I always like to use to get a sound on Ableton. So you should be able to hear some chords there, and you should be able to hear me speaking. So a parallel chord is a chord that is set in interval whenever it moves. So the simplest way to examine this is with a MIDI effect and to grab the chord device. So if I put a chord device before my Ableton Rhodes, I've got this 12 semitones. Now we can actually use this to create a minor chord, a major chord, any type of chord. So I'm going to just use it to create a simple minor chord, which is 3 semitones, 7 semitones, and I'm going to make it a minor 7, so it's going to be 10 semitones. So really, really common in house music. This was a really common thing. Cool. Great, you can hear me. Thank you very much. Great, just like to check. I did test it beforehand, but just to make sure that everything's working. Great, thank you, Hanzo Matt, for saying it's working. And thank you, hello to Rawsome and Asterix, who I'm going to be showing some of your tunes later. Okay, so here's our minor 7th chord. So that's the music theory. If you want to write that down, that's what the semitone breakdown of a minor 7th is. I haven't really gone through why that is or everything, because I'm kind of assuming either you don't care about it or you kind of know it already. I can go into this if you like, and I'll be taking more requests later. If you have ideas that you want me to go into, feel free to type it in the chat as well. But I'm not going to go about why that is for now. Just assume that that's it is. So 3, 7, 10 creates our minor 7th chord. So I can play it on the push here, and it will play a minor 7 chord. If I change the note, we have another minor 7 chord based on the next note. So it's always the same. It's not diatonic. It means that it's actually not following the scale, which I'm in. I could be major or minor or whatever. It's not really actually locking those notes to the scale. It's a parallel chord. I could lock it to the scale by putting in a scale device, but I'm not going to do that yet. So in a lot of house music, especially early house music, they would use a synthesizer that would have a chord function that would learn the keys that you're playing down. So this is where it comes from. We have a chord device. We could play for example, those keys and go, lock that key. I like that chord. So that's what it comes from. And we can't play full chords now, but there, very simply, I can just press one note, or I can even do it on my computer keyboard. Etc. With a really simple rhythm. I'm just playing that on the computer keyboard. So that is a way that we can break down the music theory into just one note. Yeah, and this is what I kind of start teaching some of my high school students. How can we get going with harmony? Because harmony is such a complex subject. I have to teach them about scales. I have to teach them about things. They need to just get going. And so if you're having trouble with harmony, this is one way that you can kind of get going quickly. It's always going to be a minor 7th chord though. So this is a really nice one to start with because it doesn't clash as much as some of the other chords. Some other chords, if I change it to a major 7th chord, it's going to sound a little bit more clashy. Or not clashy, but it can be more difficult to make them fit together. I really like major seventh chords, and I'm going to go into them a little bit later in the section about why music theory is important. So major 7 as well, again, the semitone layout's different. We're changing a 4 and to 11 here. Beautiful sound, actually. Beautiful sound. So again, just using 3 chords, you've got yourself a chord progression pretty simply. I might just try to record that and try and get that to loop, and then we can just hear how a simple chord progression in parallel sounds. Okay, trying to keep it really simple. Very simple chord progression, okay? 3 notes, that's all. If you remember from last week, I talked about how piano players would often split their hands up. This is also important. In this week, I'm going to just drop the octave. So here, I'll put another note in this chord is an octave below. So now we'll hear a lower octave, which sounds like a much fuller chord. It sounds like a real chord. And then, of course, if we create some... Oops, my screen thinks it's going to turn off. Please don't turn off. Cool. If we create some rhythms, of course, it's going to make it more interesting. Cool. So that's one way to create a parallel chord. There are lots of different chords we can use, though. So what are some of the sounds of the chords we can use? So we already talked about minor 7th. We could also do a minor major 7th, and this is a really clashy chord. What we have is a major 7th on top, and it creates like a really kind of spooky, almost evil sound. That's distorting because of the velocity. Just put a bit of a output compression on the velocity there. Cool. So that chord's another totally different sound. Really kind of spooky. Let's have a look at some other chords. I'm going to try and grab just some triads to see if we can keep it really simple and get rid of the 7th, because I don't want to have to explain too much about 7ths. But here we go again. Let's just chuck in a major chord. Many chord progressions built off of this. Just an ascending major chord progression. And again, we can have this moving up to different parts of the scale. So this is starting on number 1, which is a blue key on the Ableton push. You can see the push, right? I hope you can. Starting on number 1, moving up to 3. We can also have a really common progression where it goes from 6. Sorry, I'll start on 6 here lower. Have it move like that. So parallel chords are really interesting because they kind of break rules in terms of music theory. They don't follow what's called a diatonic scale. So I'll just explain what that is. Have you heard the word diatonic before? Can you please let me know if you've heard diatonic? Otherwise, if you have, I won't explain it. In the chat, I'll just have a little wait and see. Otherwise, I'll just keep going. If you've heard about diatonic and know what it is, let me know. If you don't know what it is, also let me know. Say, please, yes, explain to me what diatonic is. So diatonic things we can go through with the scale thing. Yeah, jazzy. Yummy jazz. Well, jazz is a lot of non-diatonic things. So a bit of both. A bit of both. I haven't got Facebook all locked up with the chat message, so I'm just going to check if there's anything from Facebook. I'm trying to see if it works this time. Okay, so diatonic means within the scale. So really simply on the push, we have these scales that we can select from, and we have in-key mode and chromatic mode. If we're using in-key mode, we are locked to using that scale. So we have to play notes in major. We have to play notes in minor. If you click chromatic, that's where we get these notes that are white or darker, and the darker notes are out of the key. So that's pretty much what this scale device does, and we can use it to create diatonic chords for us. So again, I use this with some of my high school students to kind of lock them into this idea of what diatonic chords are. So let's just grab a simple one like C major. And you'll notice here, this is like a empty scale device. And this is one that looks like it's got its keys. So what it does is it goes, okay, if you play a C sharp, that's what this one represents, it's going to lock it to a C. It's going to go, I think you're meant to play a C there. You can't make a mistake, kind of, mistakes. If you're talking about jazz, there's no such thing as mistakes. So it locks the note C sharp then to C. And similarly for some of the other notes, you can see there. Okay, so now if I play, I'm going to just turn off the chord device. Yeah, so these now are the same notes. It's locking that device. What it can be really cool is when we combine the chord device with the scale device. So this will give us one finger chords within a diatonic scale. I'm going to just lock it back to key mode. So even this progression by itself has got some cooler aspects to it. I'm just going to record it here. Now there's something interesting happening with that third chord. Points if you can figure out what it is. The first chord and the second chord are normal chords. The third chord we have is a bit of a special chord, and we can't really point it out unless I transcribe it. Would you like me to go into what that third chord is? Something special about that one. Anyway, let me know in the chat if you want me to. Again, a simple chord progression like that can become really interesting with when we create our chord and our scale set. So there are two ways that you can go and add in devices to help you with music theory. Again, this is also useful if you don't have your push, if you don't have your MIDI controllers with you. Yes, you want to know what that chord is? Okay, I'll go through what that chord is. But I have to do what I did last time, which is get the MIDI out of that track, because we're using MIDI devices, and re-sample it into another track. So what I'll do to do that, this is really useful if you want to make edits to your MIDI, but you've done MIDI devices. Like last time, I think I put in an arpeggiator, and I wanted to show you how to do that. Right. Same thing here. I'm going to grab a new MIDI track, and I'm going to go MIDI from, and I'm going to grab the MIDI from my Ableton Rhodes, which is my track that I've been playing the chord progression in. So when it plays, it will record into this track. Let's just check that it works. Yep, so we can see now that it's recording those chords that I played. Great, perfect. Now I'm just going to quickly quantize those because they're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Great. Now we can see these chords. This chord is the special one, and I'm just going to chuck the MIDI back in here so that we can hear it because it's actually not on a track. Now I think it's with the chord device on. That's why it sounds so weird. Okay, well, you asked for it. We're going to go through the theory of this. This is a simple chord. This is another simple chord going up the scale. Now, if you see, I can, on the push, the push isn't selected. It's like major, turn it to minor, and we'll be able to see. We'll be able to see that's the chord that's on the push. And then if we go up, oh, that doesn't sound the same. Because major. Here, our scale device is locking it to a suspended fourth chord. So here we have the chord sounds really unresolved. So if you hear a chord like this, just think about what kind of emotion it brings. And in this case, I think it's a very unresolved chord. And yeah, it's not got our same structure as here. If we look here, that is a third, and that is a fourth. So it's actually got a fourth. It doesn't have any major third or minor third, which is what makes it sound unresolved. So it's a kind of nice chord, and you can have it do, the really typical thing is to go from 4 to 3 and have it resolve during the chord. I'll just show you how that sounds. And if we change to there, it might sound even nicer. Ends really super happy. Cool. So there we have a couple of different ways that we can use this parallel chord technique. The other way that we're going to look at is also just within a synthesizer, how we can do this. Before I do that, I might just ask, are there any questions? Because I'm going to move on to kind of another technique that is related to this with a different method. Let me know in the chat if you've got any questions and I can try and answer them. I'm just going to prepare the next synthesizer though. So I'm going to start from scratch, and then I've got one that I've prepared earlier as well. So starting from scratch, my favorite synth actually in Ableton is Operator. What are your favorite synths? Chuck it in the chat, because I don't think a lot of people like Operator because it's kind of ugly. I mean, look at it. Everyone likes Wavetable. Everyone likes Wavetable because Wavetable's so pretty with all these wave shapes. But I like Wavetable, but it's not the one that I produce with for the most. You know, I started with Ableton 8, and Operator's been there for a while, whereas Wavetable's kind of new to me, so I'm still figuring it out. But Operator, if we look at Operator, hides Serum presets, exactly. Well, what do you prefer, Serum or Operator? That's the thing. Sorry, Serum or Wavetable. I mean, Serum came first, but personally, I use Wavetable more because I like keeping it within the box in Ableton, actually. Okay, having a look at Operator. Now, Operator has 4 oscillators. Each oscillator gets routed into this part, and at the moment, we've got them running through each other. So I'm going to separate them, which is this little button here, so that we hear each oscillator separately. Otherwise, they add to each other and create different sounds. And I just want to be really clear with how each operator works. So if I press a note on Operator, it's going to play just this oscillator because that's available. I need to bring this level up to get this one to work. Now, the coarse function. This is the really important thing that we can use to get our parallel chords without actually using any of our MIDI devices. So the coarse function is related to something called the harmonic series. Whenever you play an instrument, the harmonic series is occurring. Even if you sing, even if you hit the table, there's usually a harmonic series. So almost every sound, or every object has a sound, and it sounds kind of unique. I mean, you hear the difference between what we sampled last week, a water bottle, and, for example, a real piano. There's this difference in the sound. And what the difference is the harmonics of that sound. So we call it a fundamental frequency and then the harmonics above a sound. This is really important in how the shapes of sound. So I play flute, saxophone, and clarinet, and they're my main instruments. So flute and sax and clarinet all sound different, even though they're wind instruments, because of their harmonics. That's how it works. So we can do the same thing with a synthesizer. And what we're adjusting here when we adjust the coarse parameter is the harmonics. So I'm going to just grab the coarse function here. Now, as soon as I put it up to number 2, it's gone up an octave. Now, this is the first step in the harmonic series. There's some like intense physics behind this. Again, I think I mentioned physics last week, didn't I? I'm in no means a scientist, but I really love the harmonic series. So this is something I found really interesting. First step is an octave. Second step is a fifth. Third step is another octave. And this is the one we're looking for. This is a major third. So when I play this, it is now a parallel chord based on major thirds. So it's the same as if I went and created a MIDI device in my Rhodes and created a 4 in my device to create a major third. So 4 semitones creates a major third, and this is creating it. But it naturally occurs in the harmonic series. So in our operator, we can just dial it in on the chords parameter and it will work. I think it also works as number 10. Yeah, 10 is an octave above. So it can kind of get some cool sounds if you... But that is a harmonic series and it just follows a step, and the intervals get smaller and smaller as we get higher. But let's just plug in number 5. Just see if we can get this to work. Okay. So that's my major third. If I want it to be like lower, I might just drop the octave there. Now this is really common in like early 2000s kind of music. They had this in a lot of synthesizers. I can think of maybe like the Bloody Beetroots. Warp had a parallel fifth. The Body Rocks, Yeah 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 is a song that I talk about in one of my books. It says, and it is locked in major thirds as well. There are a number of examples. Wiley, Wearing My Rolex, this also has major thirds. Many, many examples. So we can get a really cool sound out of this if we do a bit of sound design and add it to it. So that's a sound I kind of prepared for another remix. Another couple of things that we can add to a sound like this is glide and reverb and stuff. And it's often paired with a glide. I don't know why that is, but it kind of makes it sound cool that we have. In the upper octave, it is not it's not showing the major third. But that's one way to get a major third. We could also get in the same synth, and you can see here, this is my synth that I prepared. I've got 3 and 10 and 5. So I've got 2 octaves of the third, and I've got the original octave down the bottom. Maybe we could try a 5th. So I'm just going to turn off this one, and maybe we'll just do it on this one so we can hear it. That's our 5th. That is actually a 7th. So in the case of our major scale, it would be actually a B flat, which is not part of the scale. So that would be another way that we can make a 5th. And this is a little bit better than using the MIDI device because it kind of sounds more natural as part of the synth. The only problem is if we try to change the key, it can't be changed. It has to be parallel. We cannot do the second trick that I showed you about, which was putting in a scale device. So this scale device will allow us to play notes from C major or notes from C minor or any of the scales that we choose. But if we're using the operator and we lock this course device, it will only allow us to play that interval. So there are benefits and negatives to that. The benefit, I think, is there is a better sound. One of the negatives is we have less harmonic freedom. Okay, so for parallel chords, I think that pretty much covers it. What I want to talk about a little bit more is how we can use diatonic chords and how we can mix and match diatonic chords to create chord progressions. So I'm going to go back to my Ableton Rhodes. Feel free to chuck in any questions if you've got a question. I'm going to go back to here and I'm going to enable my chord device and my scale device. So here is my why does it sound minor? This should be major. For some reason, it is not. 4, 7, 12. I might put an extra 12 here. I'm just going to double check that that is major by swapping it out to minor. Ah, I know why. Maybe you can't see this, but I have selected E minor on my push. Very silly of me. There we go. Okay. All right. So here's our major chord. Now, one of the most common chord progressions in jazz is what I'm going to demonstrate this with. Anybody know what the chord progression is I'm talking about? I'm going to play it, see if you can guess it. I made a mistake. I'm going to do it again. Okay, only the second part is correct. AJ has joined the discussion. Welcome, Kieran. Now, at 9 o'clock, I'm going to announce the producer games, which I'm going to invite you all to on Saturday. And Kieran and I will be battling it out for a fun little challenge that I've created. I'm going to show you that when I finish this, okay? Okay, so anyone got that chord progression? No? I can only see your chat and I think it's a bit delayed, so let me know. I'm not going to tell you yet unless you can try and get it. So here's my chord progression. It's the most common jazz chord progression as a hint. What I can do with this chord progression is also use this form to create other structures within a diatonic chord progression. So if we look very simply at the shape. Oh, I think I did a bit of a weird thing there. My chatbot is freaking out. Just give me a second. Here we go. Okay. I'm not sure why it asked you not to spam any symbols, but I didn't see any symbols. So no answers? Yeah, that's right. It is a 251 raw summon asterisk. Correct. It is a 251. So what's a 251? If we count this as number 1, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 251 is 2, 5, 1. Yep. This is what every jazz piece has in it. Yeah? 2 is actually a substitution of 4, which comes from more traditional music, was 4, 5, 1. Yeah? A lot of classical music uses this. So in the early stages of jazz, they changed that first chord and made it into a chord substitution of the progression. So we have 2, 5, 1. What we could do with this is also make 251s into other parts of the diatonic scale. So we could do a 251, but we could use that same shape into a different key, into a different part. So the most common one is a 251 into the relative minor. So the relative minor of C major is... I'm going to play it on the push, and I hope you can try and figure it out. I'm cheating again. I'm just using this one finger trick with the chords. Oops. Yeah, very good. Who is that? Desynchronizer. A minor, indeed. So if we go from C major, the relative minor is 3 notes below C. So C, B, A. In français, Do, Si, La. So every minor key related to a major key is 3 notes below. Yep, very good. I don't know what that little symbol means though. Cool. We are now in our minor key. So to do a 2-5-1 into the minor, we just need to start the next note. So here we're going. So we could try a 2-5-1 in the major key. I'm going to do it here because it sounds a little bit clearer in the higher register. Cool. So when we just join those together, they actually work because they're in the same diatonic key. If I took off the scale device, it's going to sound kind of weird. If I try and do that again, it's not going to be part of the key. Sorry, I'll start up here. They're all major chords. So it doesn't sound like it's part of the key, it's diatonic. It's not diatonic. So to me that sounds a little strange, but again, it depends what kind of sound you're going for as well. There are some songs that would do all those as major chords. So what if we keep going? We end up back at C. So we can keep using this kind of pattern to create a chord progression that will continue. It's not called a 2-5-1 anymore if it's not on the 2, but that same shape. This is now the 7, 3, 6, 5, 1, 4, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. So a really simple pattern like that, and the push is really nice about how visual it is. You know, we can go up and then down, up and then down, up and then down, and this creates a diatonic progression. I think I posted on the Facebook and whatever the circle of fifths, which I'm just going to open up, and looks a bit insane, but the circle of fifths is really useful because it just shows us all the different keys. Can you see the circle of fifths on the screen? Ah, that is the answer. Yeah, okay, thanks Desynchronizer. You've explained what it is because I've never seen that symbol before, and this is all new to me. Symbols because you're on Twitch and as Amazon Prime customer, so it's a paid Twitch account. Cool. Kieran Jones, you have posted some crazy face. I don't even know how you did that. You have to teach me that later. Or someone else has said, yes, the circle of fifths, my favorite thing. Cool. It's my favorite thing, the circle of fifths. I still have it on my wall. So just above my computer screen here, I still have the circle of fifths because it's so useful for everything. So I've done, this is what I'm going to talk to you a bit about later, and it's kind of related to John Coltrane and his triadic method, but this is more of actually a diminished method. But what I'm just going to go through and tell you is how what we just did links to this. This chord here would be our D minor. So D then goes to G, then goes to C. We're then going to jump over to B, E, A. Okay, so we've actually just used all of those chords there along that side. So in C major, these all fit within the scale. C major is all of those notes there. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So they're doing a bit of a weird way because they're in fourths. Yeah? So the push is set up in fourths. Fourths go upwards. You can actually change that if you don't want it to be in fourths. You can do it in thirds the other way, or you can be a nutcase and do it in sequence. I don't know anyone who does that. Use it for Easy Keys Studio 1s. They have a built-in circle of fifths. That's cool. So inside Studio 1, there's a built-in circle of fifths. Is that what you're saying? I'd like to see. I never used Studio 1, so I don't really know. But the circle of fifths, really useful. I would definitely print it out and put it on my wall if I were you. It's very useful for everything. Especially if you're doing harmony stuff. So my circle of fifths, we've just done a chord progression with all of these keys here. Yeah. If we just go back over that progression again, D, G, C, B, E, A. Yeah, there are most of our chord progressions. Even just that, that's 6 chords. That is at least 2 or 3 chords more than most pop songs have. So if you want to create really complex chord progressions, this is kind of what you need to be looking at. And that's what I like to teach about, complex chord progressions. So what should we do next? I would like to break this out of diatonic. Can I do that? Or would you like me to keep going and talk about what else more we can do with diatonic? Comment from desynchronizer to yes, a chord check where you can fix the scale and lock the piano roll to the scale. It's like push without hardware. Yeah, so it's kind of like what I demonstrated with this chord and scale device. You can lock it to there. I think many DAWs have that feature, but I've never seen one with like the actual circle. That's kind of cool. I like it that it's in the circle. I find that it's kind of it's very flexible, you know, the chord device. But if you don't know what a semitone is, it's not so accessible. If you just, you know, could go and I suppose that's why they have, you know, major and other chords here at like major tom. They could just have, you know, major seventh, minor seventh, etc. And same with the scale, you know. It's if you want to make your own custom scale, it's a little complicated to get your head around that. But I don't ever really edit it, to be honest, because they've got a lot of different scales you can use. It's pretty straightforward there. Okay, what I'd like to do is go a little bit into how you can break out of diatonic. And I'm going to give you an example with kind of what Coltrane did. I'm going to just send a link in the chat. And it's hopefully a song that you guys have heard before. Kieran, you're going to laugh at this one. So this is, I'm a saxophone player. This is one of the most influential jazz saxophone players, and he really revolutionized harmony with how he used this song. And similarly, he uses the 2-5-1 chord progression in a really interesting way. And I'm going to go through his composition. Well, no, I'm just going to go through the idea behind his composition. I'm not going to go through it because it's really intense. But I'm going to see how you can apply it to electronic music and how I've applied it. So I have posted that in the link. Have a quick listen to the beginning. I'm going to give you like 30 seconds or so. That is John Coltrane's Giant Steps. Have a listen. Any comments, chuck it in the stream. I'm just going to get my guitar ready because I'm going to just play some things on guitar too. Cool. How'd you go with John Coltrane? Giant Steps we meet again. Now, Giant Steps, it's fantastic, but it's super complicated. And I'm not going to go through about what he does solos, but something he does with the chord progression, it's really interesting. I'm going to go back to the circle of fifths to explain it. Can I double duplicate this? I might just have to download the circle of fifths again so I can annotate it. Just give me a sec. Circle of fifths. I did a crazy diagram there that doesn't relate. And I'm just going to download it again. Save image as on desktop. Go. Did it work? Didn't work. Great. Okay, circle of fifths. Here we go. Right. Opening up the circle of fifths again, we can see, I don't know why this one's so small. We can see our keys again. What Coltrane did was really interesting in that he kind of had like this triangular approach to joining up things. So what I've done here with this one is done another shape. It's a square. You can try and connect them up with different shapes. And when we talk about a diatonic chord progression, we talked about a pressure again that went from C, or in the case D, G, C. Often it's just going in one direction and it's, counterclockwise. We talk about Coltrane's thing. He doesn't do that. He goes in triangles or he goes in squares, which creates diminished connections. Really, really interesting stuff. So we can break out of diatonic by trying to think about how we could jump to different keys. So what I'm going to do is just talk about how you can use a compression on, well, I'm going to play it on the guitar, but you'll be able to see it as well on the push and how it would be on the push. Usually with my chord progressions, I'll play it on guitar because guitar, it's more natural for me. Just is. So. Cool. Kieran, you said play Sweet Child of Mine. No metal shredding here. I can't shred metal. Maybe on flute, but not here. Also, there's a bot that's just chimed in. Thank you, robots. There will be, in about 10 or 15 minutes, we're going to talk about the weekly challenge. And Raw Salmon Asterix, you have posted your weekly challenge. So I'm going to go through that one in a little while. I'm just going to finish up with this first, though. Okay, so with our guitar, I'm going to actually just hook this up. It's not plugged in. Check this out. I'm going to just turn on the MIDI function and plug it in so that it will play the synths on the computer. So I'm a lazy bastard. Instead of learning keyboard, I just got a MIDI guitar. And that's how lazy I am. Yeah, I really don't like keyboard, or I couldn't be bothered learning another instrument. So what I'm going to do is just have that chord progression up there. So if I go, for example, on my 251, we've got like 4 different key centers there. And what I basically did was I jumped around from C to A to F sharp. So instead of going, I went 251 into here, and then I went 251 into here, and then I went 251 into here. So kind of breaking our diatonic rules, but still works. Jazz can break rules, and music can break rules. Rules are made to be broken. If you're in the stage of learning the rules, obviously learn the rules first, but break the rules as well after that. So I really like this sound of a 251 as well. I've really studied the hell out of it. What we can do here, instead of doing, which would be in the diatonic key, we can then make A the major key. So it's again kind of like a parallel, like our parallel chord, we've got a parallel progression. It's staying the same in a different key. Cheesy. So what we can do with that is learn that the circle of fifths, it's a guide, but it's useful also to break things. So we can really break down chords and go through that. What can also be really useful is learning chord shapes on the push and making them fit within our chord progressions as well, using the circle of fifths. So I've also made a chord progression reference. I think probably some of you know what I'm talking about. The push, when I first got it, had no reference about where the chords were. I didn't really understand how this structure worked. Not sure about you guys, but it was kind of a bit like an open book. It was really interesting. I've never seen an instrument like that. But I decided to go, hey, And this is the way I made it. I went, hey, I play guitar, and it's really cool that when I play a guitar chord, they light up. So I just went and made a map of all the guitar chords that I knew, which is like a minor seventh, dominant ninth, major seventh, or major ninth, or major 13th. And just created a map of all of these ones. And so I found that really helpful in learning some of the push things because, yeah, I can go, that's how I play it on the guitar. So I can just now go, cool, I've got a major 13th chord. So that's pretty useful. And it can be combined with all this stuff to make your chord progressions like a bit better. But I find the other thing that I like about guitar is that it has a different voicing. Remember we talked about voicing this last stream, and the voicing of the chord is really important about which note is emphasized and how the notes join together with the other chords. So like if I play even just those first two, you can see there's not a lot of movement on the push. That's a 2-5, and keeping those voices together is really, really important. Okay, I'm going to stop that there. Someone said, I don't use chromatic view. Yeah, well, chromatic view is a little complicated, but it does allow you to do all these chromatic chords. So like if I wanted to do this chord progression, I couldn't do it in key mode, or it would be more difficult to do in key mode. It could be done in key mode. Just have a look how we can do it in key mode. So I did a 2-5 into C major and a 2-5 into A major and a 2-5 into F sharp major. This requires changing the keys here. So I could do like this, and then A major, like that. I mean, it's not ideal and it doesn't get you the voicing that's required, but then you can adjust the voicing manually. It might work. But I think eventually the chromatic view is more flexible. But personally, with the push, I will use the key mode in key mode because it is fast. If you want to make a simple chord progression and chord progression fast, that is what it's for. I find that very useful. Whereas if I want a complex chord progression, I'm just going to pick up the guitar and use that. Okay, I'm going to go through some of the producer games and the submissions for the sample challenge from last week. Might just turn on a light as well because it's starting to get dark here. Okay, so Kieran Jones and myself are going to be doing a challenge on Saturday, which is like a game, a producer challenge game. I'm going to show you how it works, okay? The producer challenge. I'm going to just change the screen. I hope you can still hear me. Changing screen. Challenge time. So this is going to be how it works. There is a spinning wheel. I'm going to see if I can spin it now. And around the wheel, there are different challenges for us to do. So I might just quickly explain the challenges so that we can do it. Okay. Challenge number 1 is you got to make a tune, and I'm thinking we've got to keep this to 45 minutes. 45 minutes, you got 45 minutes, and you have to use, for example, number 1, only 5 tracks. That's all you got. So that's challenge number 1. Challenge number 2 is you get a random YouTube sample, and you got to work with that. So I found a website that does YouTube randomizer, and that will allow us to grab a random YouTube video, and then we grab a sample from that, and we try and recreate something. One of the ones I tried out just the other day was this next one, only samples, so no synths. And on the flip side of that, so no synths and also no samples. So it has to be all synths. You can't use a drum loop, you can't use a drum recording. Next one, 10-minute challenge. So that breaks the 45-minute rule, but 10 minutes, you got 10 minutes, make a thing. Just like the Fact Mag one. I'm not sure if you've seen the Fact Mag 10-minute challenge, but I really like this because you have to get down stuff really quickly. Next one is reverso. You have to reverse everything. Number 7 is phones only. So this is making the beat on, I don't know, GarageBand, or I think the one I use more is Gadget. Yep, called Gadget. That's okay. Or something like that. I'm not sure if you use iOS or whatever. Phones only. Next one, silence is golden. And number 9, it's solo time, which means to include an instrumental or synth solo in your piece. So I'm just going to show you how it works. And if we can spin the device, how do I get to spin? Here we go. Okay, I'm going to spin the wheel. Can you see the wheel? The wheel has landed on solos. So for example, for this challenge, we might have to do solos. I'm going to spin it again, and hopefully you can see if we land on something different. YouTube, random YouTube sample. Okay, so you get the idea. We're going to have to sample something randomly. I will probably limit it to musical things because, you know, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube which is just random noises or videos or something like that. So that's the challenge games. It's going to be on Saturday at 8 p.m. as well. Okay, so if you want to participate, also log in, have a look. We're going to start the sample challenge. And then what I'll do is I'll try and collect, if people have sent any in, what I'll do is collect them and we'll talk about them at the end of the stream. Which leads me to submission from last week. So, Raw Salmon Asterix has sent in a sample. Last week, your challenge was to sample something in your house. I sampled my water bottle and I made it into a synth. I demonstrated that before. How do I show that again? Yeah, so this is what I made. So I just made an instrument out of the water bottle sound. It had a particularly like resonant, it's a different water bottle by the way. It had a resonant sound. So that's what I sampled it with. Now, Raw Salmon Asterix, you sampled something. What did you sample? Can you tell us? Just going to try and get up your submission as well. Maybe in the chat, just write a couple of notes on what you sampled. I'm going to just bring it up over here. Okay, so this is the Facebook group. So this was designed for the push courses that I made. They're on Teachable and Udemy. Last week, the sample challenge. Sample 3, everyday objects, and make melodic instruments out of them. You can't see my screen. I'm going to go back to my screen now. Back to this one. So the challenge was sample 3 everyday objects, make melodic instruments out of them, post example of your creations. So, Raw Salmon Asterix says, an alarm clock, a doorknob being unlocked, and a pan you found in the kitchen. Cool. All right, let's have a listen and see if we can find those. I've also got a couple of comments I'm going to put in the tune. So thank you for submitting that. I'm just going to open up the tune. Here it is. All right, you should be able to hear this if I press play. Such an iconic sound. I love these chords. Sequence here. that's the end of our tune. Cool. So thank you, Raw Salmon Asterix, for setting that one in. Yeah, someone said in the comments here, a modem back from the 90s. Yes, I think that's such an iconic sound that, I mean, I played this to some of my students, actually, this sound, and they kind of went, I've heard that before, but they kind of couldn't put their finger on what it was. And it was really funny to see, like, kids react to tapes or kids react to modems. This was exactly it. It was just, wow. Yeah, so before the age of Wi-Fi. I really like the chords, Raw Salmon Asterix. If you're there, you can hear it. It's really cool chords. And just a technique that is also really useful, kind of what we talked about with our chord progression, is something called a sequence. So a sequence is when we do like a chord progression. That's our 2-5-1. But if I then take that same shape and what I talked about as well and go into a different key, that's a sequence, yeah? So we can do that with a melody, and that could be like, it means the melody, the root point, is moving. So kind of similar, I think one of your chord progressions, it sounds similar, but starting in a new key. I'm not entirely sure, I'm just listening with the first time. So yeah, really cool chord progressions, and I really like this super smooth synth. Sounds very sine wavy. What loses me a little bit is it's like super funky here, and you've even got a little bit of percussion to keep that rhythm going on. And even though we don't feel a lot of percussion, there's a rhythm to it, and we can feel that. But when you have your modem sound, it's just long enough that we lose a sense of rhythm. I really like the modem sound though, so I wouldn't say get rid of the modem sound, but if I were producing this track, what I might do is, like, I don't know, put a stutter effect, like a stutter, or like cut it a little bit shorter so it's just within 4 beats or something like that, so that we can still feel the rhythm. I like that it's kind of like, oh, we just lost the transmission of this cool song, and then back in. And of course, yeah, some 8-bit crushing here. Someone mentioned that, right? The bit crusher is hard on this one. Yes, it is. But it's not obtrusive. See, that one's shorter, and we don't lose the sense of rhythm. So if you know what I mean, like the rhythm kind of just feels like it's a bit lost on the longer ones. Obviously at the end, it's kind of the end of the piece, but really cool. I really like the chords. Really like the chords. Do we have any other submissions? I'm just going to check the Facebook page. Let's see if we had anybody else send anything in. KJ, did you ever... Kieran, who might still be here, who's going to be doing a challenge on Saturday, he said he sampled his coffee machine. Now, I'm not sure if he ever sent me anything. I don't see any other submissions right now. That is okay. But that's your challenge. Again, that was the first week's challenge. If you still want to send challenges in, you may. There are many things you can sample in your house, even if you are stuck inside and you can't buy new plugins. There's a lot of instruments you can make out of things you just sample within your house. So that's the inspiration for the first challenge. I haven't thought of a challenge for this week because I'm inviting you to the challenge on Saturday, which is going to be randomized, as we saw with the spin wheel. It might be one of those five or so things. So maybe you want to prepare for some of those things. But yeah, have your chops up. We'll have a look. And we're only going to do it for 45 minutes or so. So that's going to be it. Now, I don't have much more that I want to talk about tonight. Are there any other questions? Because I went through all the things I wanted to talk about. Why theory's useless, because you can use scale and chords or device from Ableton. And why theory is important. I didn't talk about ear training. Someone said, I want to get the phone one so bad. So Raw Salmon Asterix, what what app would you use to produce if you got the phone one? Modem back in the 90s, maybe it's AOL. AOL, oh my god. Yes, AOL. What apps would you use if you got the phone one? Just comment that in the stream below. Let's see what you get. My top picks would be, I first started out with, I think, iMachine. These are the ones I have on my phone. And we got, wait, can you see that? I'm not sure if you can see that. Can we see that? So in the middle, we got iMachine. My favorite synth for sound design is this one, Sunriser XS. We got Chord Gadget over here, which I think is the best one because you can import the project into Ableton. Some stupid ones are Bebot and Reason Figure. I had hopes for Reason Figure, but I kind of got lost. What's this one? That's Launchpad. GarageBand is actually fantastic. I'm really surprised how good GarageBand is. Because I've used GarageBand, I don't know, for years, especially teaching in high school. A lot of kids will have GarageBand on the computers or the school computers. But GarageBand's gone from just a bit of a gimmick to actually pretty fully functional. Kieran, yeah, sorry, didn't get around to making anything. Oh well. Maybe you can chuck the sample up on the group, and then if someone else wants to make a sample out of the coffee machine, then they can. That'd be cool. I also sampled my toothbrush, which I didn't like either, but maybe someone wants to make a bass out of a toothbrush. I might chuck it in there, okay? Also from last week, I forgot to mention, if you wanted the project with the sampled water bottle file, I put that up for download, and I put that up for download on my website. So I'll just show that quickly. You don't need to sign in, you don't need to subscribe, you don't need to do anything. It's free. I'm not asking for your email, nothing. Just trying to say I'm not self-promoting. But yeah, here, that's the project file from the thing. So there we go. Cool. I can post that to the group if you want. Where am I? Yep. Apparently it won't let you post links, raw sum and asterisks. I don't know why that is. I don't think I blocked it from sending links, but you can chuck a link in the Facebook group because I know you're part of it. Facebook group link, Kieran. Let me see if I can find it for you. Okay, KJ, the Facebook group. I'm going to send it in here. There we go, Facebook group. Yeah, Ableton Push Theory courses. Yeah, so it was designed for my Teachable students. That's a website. And Udemy students. Cheers, KJ. All right. Someone's got blocked. I'm a little confused. What is it? Raw sum and asterisk. Yeah, this should help. Okay. Someone blocked you, raw sum and asterisk, with the link. I'm not sure what you posted, but I don't know. Oh, 17 messages were deleted by a moderator. I'm sorry. I don't really understand how that works, but yeah. Okay, back to phones. I've noticed you said, what apps have we got? Arturia has a sequencer for free right now. Cool. Chord Gadget, which is on sale right now. Yep. I would say Chord Gadget is the one if we do the phones one. The other category that didn't fit in the wheel was the cheapskate category, which is only free VSTs. So no Ableton or whatever you use stock sounds, just free VSTs. Now, I don't have many free VSTs, but I did download a bunch for my school projects because some kids don't have Ableton or something, and a lot of my kids start with intro. So intros doesn't have a lot of stuff. So I thought another one that could be fun would be Cheapskate. So free VSTs only. If you have any free VSTs that you like and you really like, please post it in the chat there. Last thing I will also ask is any questions, because I think I've covered everything except ear training, which is the most boring part. And I think I'm going to lose some of you. So before I do that, ask me a question. If not, I will bore you with music theory. Got 10 seconds before music theory time. Damn it, computer work, please. Okay, no comments, so we're going into ear training. All right, the last thing that I'm going to talk about is ear training and music theory and why it's important. We talked about Coltrane's circle fifths. Now, obviously, he understands music theory, and that's why he can break all those rules. If you want to just stay within the key or stay diatonic, that's fine, but sometimes we can break these keys. Now, what allows us to do this is having good ears. Personally, I think music theory is the best piece of gear you're going to ever have. If you work on your music theory knowledge, and that includes your ears, that's going to be the best thing that you can do. So this is actually something that me and KJ did back in high school. This was what really got me through some of my exams. And musictheory.net, it's gold. Now, I recommend this to my students, whatever age. It has lessons, and the lessons are really basic, and they go through really basic stuff, but they still teach you things, like all the way up to building Neapolitan chords and how to use Neapolitan chords. So some really good, useful stuff. Very, very useful. I'm going to go to exercises and just show you how I would use this, because it is infinitely useful. You can use this. I could still be using this if I had time. Not here. We're going to go down to ear training. So there are a couple of different types of ear training, and there's note training, interval training, scale ear training, and chord ear training. So, I mean, depends what you want to build on. I would start with chords and intervals. Note ear. Oh God, didn't mean for it to play already. Sorry, guys. Note ear training is if you have perfect pitch or if you want to have perfect pitch, which personally I don't think is that relevant. And you can't really get perfect pitch. You can get relative pitch. Relative pitch is pretty damn useful though, because essentially what you can do with something like relative pitch is to go, oh yeah, listening to that song, oh yeah, that's this chord progression. And you can just analyze it without even having to get an instrument. I think that's really, really useful. I would definitely recommend you try and do that. So I would start with interval ear training. Now, interval ear training, there are many different intervals, and it will just play you an interval. Sorry, I need to click to make it work first. It will play you an interval, and then you need to tell me you need to tell it what interval it is. So this is minor second. But I would start with more simple intervals than all of the intervals at the beginning, and you can change it by clicking here. Now, this is really useful for melodies. Can also be really useful for chords, because if you hear the way that they're built, it can be many chords or extension chords, sorry, like a 7th chord or a 9th chord or a 13th chord. Makes us a bit easier to hear. So, I can change the intervals here, minor second. I'm just going to set it to major. And I would start even with just those simple ones so that you've got really simple intervals, and then slowly build it up. This is really, really useful. Also, the chord trainer. The chord trainer allows us to hear different chords, and it will go through dominant, major, minor, half diminished. I think you can add many more. Like if you just want major and minor, like I start my 11-year-olds off with major and minor, and then by I think 13 they have to do diminished, and 14 they have to do dominant sevenths. So those 4 chord types can be really useful to be able to use. Again, we use these a lot in jazz, just like we have major and minor 7th, which are added usually in the last 2 years of high school. Dominant 7th, major 7th, minor 7th, half diminished and full diminished 7th. I think they usually have to learn for their final years of like GCSE, or I don't know what you do in America. Yep, sorry, back in Europe here. So yeah, that's what you're kind of expected to learn by the end of like a year 12. So they can be really useful. You can get away with not learning all these, but it's really useful. It's really useful to be able to go, I can hear that chord and I can identify what that chord is. I believe that is a major 7th. Yep. So a major 7th, and then imagine you can go, listen to a chord progression, or listen to a song, sorry, and go, it's a D major 7th going to an E minor 7th, going to an A major 7th, and then a C sharp diminished. It saves you a lot of time. Very useful skill. All right, that's all for me. I'm done. I've been teaching all day and I don't have anything else to say. So, are there any questions before we wrap it up? I'm going to take that silence as a no. Okay, I'll let you know. Saturday, 8 o'clock is the producer challenge. You can tune in. Myself and Kieran Jones Music, who is commenting on the Twitch channel, will be heading this challenge. You are welcome to tune in and participate. It's a bit of a shame, but this weekend was the Ableton Loop Producers Weekend. I got a reminder from Ryanair today saying, your flight's been cancelled, just so you know, and applying for a refund, you're going to have to jump through hoops. Thank you, Ryanair. So yes, it's a bit of a shame, but there are some other things on if you want to watch. This weekend there are some, I think, live streams from Ableton Loop. Andrew Huang and Rachel Collier are ones that came to mind. Kieran Jones, the bot is not liking you. It says, Kieran Jones, you have my attention. Stop posting links. I'm going to try and figure out how to stop it from doing that, because I want you guys to be able to post links, like if you want to post your songs or anything. So I don't know why. Well then, yeah, someone said loop sessions will be on. There'll be some loop sessions as well. I'm not sure what time they're on, but I wanted to kind of hold my own one to just give myself a bit more motivation to keep going with some things. So the challenge games will start 8 p.m. on Saturday, 8 p.m. CEST, so European time, okay? If there's no other questions, I am clocking out. Have a good weekend, guys, and hopefully see you Saturday for the Challenger games. Okay? Adios.